Hey Tom, how's it going?
Good, Joe. Really glad to be here with you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah. So for people who don't know you, do you want to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, brief intro, if it's only the latest chapter of my life. I'm at an age now where if I give a brief intro of my whole life, it gets kind of long. But currently, uh, lead data scientist for UO Prospector, which hosts a SaaS that delivers um, searches on database items for the largest and most accurate database in the world on plastics and also paints, coatings, personal care, and cosmetic chemicals. And I love being part of that. And it's really welcome because even though I've had some challenging things to work on in my career, I'd say with where things are at in the space for natural language processing, or I should call it language processing in general, and with transformers coming on the scene and how they're changing it or improving things so much, this is a truly exciting time for me to be in that role. And then
I get,
also it started. Oh, sorry, I founded Integrated Machine Learning and AI, and I started out as a blog, but as people asked me for mentoring, which shocked me, I started just trying to mentor people the best I could, and now we're still waiting to see what it becomes. But I say we because I've just collected a bunch of talented, passionate people that want to contribute to the community, and it's growing very healthy and strong right now. So we're still eager to see what it's going to become, but already some textbooks and courses are going to come out of it. We're excited about that.
wow, that's impressive. Hey, walk me through that. Like, what is what's the foundation of integrated machine learning? Like, where did it start, and what got you started with that in the first place?
So a short while back, I found myself without a job. And I also realized I hadn't really looked for a job in the last 20 years because of my network and my background. But then I sensed things had really changed. And so I started trying to get a good feel for the environment. And I realized I needed an online presence. And a friend helped me see how big data science was. And then I realized, yeah, I was using it. I'd learned it way back in grad school and was using pieces of it, and was, you know, just a passionate user of Python. But this this friend of mine that's a cloud architect expert with Microsoft, I just got together with him and said, I'm having this crisis. I really want to move forward. And he said, well, Tom, do you recognize yourself as a data scientist? Yeah. I said, well, do you realize what's going on in that field? No, because I suck at current events, even in my own fields. And he helped me see that. And then when I realized, okay, I really need to build an online presence, first thing I thought, let me just start a blog. So I have a portfolio online so people can see how I contribute, how I think. And then that led to people reaching out to me on LinkedIn for help. And then I realized a lot of people weren't helping these people, which shocked me. And I thought, are you kidding? This is the future. These people are smart. They just need a little encouragement. And so I just trying to offer a little bit more all the time. And with more mentoring requests came more busyness. I thought, all right, how can I manage this increased load? And I reached out to my growing team, asked for help. And so we agreed, okay, yeah, write blog posts on the things you think they most need to hear and see how that works. And that worked incredibly well. And then people were wanting to get on the phone with me more. And I went, oh, okay. How about a Saturday morning integrated mentoring session? So the very first one, Joe, I said, look, I could mentor y'all and that would go this far. But if we have a spirit of helping everyone, all of us helping each other, it can go unlimited. So let me just hear a question and I'll offer my input. But now let's hear from some other people too. And as we went into that mode, we never slowed down. Each Saturday morning was bigger and better. And I would say we're a little bit like Harpreet's office hours or not happy hours on Friday, but just a little different. And but the the support from the new people saying how much they appreciate the way we're doing things is just blowing us away and making us very excited that all we really wanted to do was give back, meet needs, encourage the next generation. Because as you study history of math and science, you see, wow, yeah, it's great we had Einstein, but we needed the people after him to implement what he gave us. And then there's smart people after them, et cetera. So to me, the greatest honor is inspiring and encouraging that next generation to take everyone to the next level. And so that's a big thing that drives us.
That's really cool. I've had similar thoughts too lately. As I look at the LinkedIn community, especially the community that you and I are a part of with data scientists, it's the refreshing thing is it's a very encouraging group of people.
Yes.
Because I've seen other groups where it's sort of like they treat knowledge and learning as almost a zero-sum game, and the thing I like about the groups that we're a part of is it's the exact opposite. It's a very growth-oriented mindset. And
absolutely. And it's been a blessing too to realize, well, okay, you and I are close friends with Kate Strackney. I hope I'm saying her name right. I think I am. And Scott Thompson and Scott Clendaniel and Susan Walsh, but not all of our friends that we share together would say they're data scientists. And that always makes me feel like, well, you're data evangelists. You're important. Everything you teach is, if you didn't teach what you were teaching, our job wouldn't be getting better over time. And so I love the term data scientist. I think it's appropriate. But when someone else tries to say, well, they're not really a data scientist, I'm like, yeah, but they're a datapreneur, or they're a data evangelist, or they're a data practitioner. Think about just the likes of Scott Taylor and George Firikin. We need those guys.
Yeah, and it's a growing community too. And the cool thing I'm seeing is, a lot of, I think a lot of enthusiastic new people getting into the field as well, and engaging with I don't want to use the word senior, but more established people, and it's really cool. I get a kick out of it because, again, like a lot of other fields, if you look at other fields like law or something like that, I don't think it would be as accepting by any means. It's sort of like just get to the back of the line and wait 20 years and maybe you can talk to us. So this is exact opposite.
Yeah, exactly. I think a good way to put it, Joe, is that you and I just have more miles on our tires, and that experience helps the new guys. Like, it's amazing if you just take the time to tell someone, look, even if you weren't going to encounter any difficult people in your career, this stuff's still hard. I want you to be kind and gentle with yourself when you're struggling with the concept, because trust me, not only did the people that originate this stuff struggle, but all of us struggle at some point with some concept, and it just takes months to get over the hump with it. So don't judge yourself or feel bad if there's a concept that just really is tough to get over. You'll get over it in time. And gosh, I remember being an undergrad, and we didn't have data science back then, but I remember being in my first dynamics course and almost daily thinking, what? But eventually it clicked after being beat up by several homework problems.
Dynamics. Were you a ME major?
So all three of my degrees are in mechanical engineering, but luckily I became what it would be more appropriate to say my PhD is in multi-physics engineering with a strong emphasis in controls and robotics. So a lot of mechatronics, all that stuff, that just because I could see even back then the limits of classical control system design, even with estimators and cool stuff like that. And by the way, we had MATLAB and Simulink. We could do quite a bit even back then, but I was already seeing limits. And so when I was exposed to fuzzy logic and expert systems and neural networks, I literally latched onto that stuff and wanted to learn it, but we weren't calling it data science back then. I think Jan LeCun and I were going through grad school at the same time, but he had a far more focused emphasis on neural networks, of course, under Geoffrey Hinton.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess circling back, what is some advice that you would give somebody who's interested in getting into the data field?
Yeah, this is something that I basically have this carefully crafted message I put together, and I frequently copy and paste into messages on LinkedIn or onto our Slack channel, just to say, this is my current best collection of everything I'd really want to tell you if we were sitting down face to face to help you and encourage you. So the first thing is a post I wrote, but we can just talk about it high level, is you need to be the master of your own personalized learning plan. And I would even say that that friend, mentor that I talked to as I redefined myself, he'd been doing that for years. And I guess we all do it, but to make it a little more formal and create a skills matrix that says, well, I know this skill, but what degree, what depth do I know it to? And keeping a list of what you think is most important for you to learn, because as you and I both know, data science is growing so fast and you can't learn everything, but you have to decide based on your current role or your current aspirations, what do I really need to learn? What should I learn? And so just kind of having a very informal learning plan that you check in with it every once in a while is very important. And the next thing was just pointing out, hey, pace yourself. You are where you are, and you're not going to get to the next level super fast. So make sure you know the basics, but be a well-balanced individual. I mean, you've got to have a really sharp mind to learn data science and to be good at it. Well, an exhausted mind is not a sharp mind. So make sure you're rested, make sure you're taking breaks. When you feel like you're against a wall, take a break, get a change in scenery, a change in perspective, and go find, just be open to letting it come to you later. But trying to just be, let me put it this way. You've seen those pictures of icebergs, and they show how much of the iceberg's above the water and how much is below. And I look at, okay, your data science life is kind of what's above the water. But if you really want to be a good data scientist, you also got to focus on what's below the water. And I'm really glad among our community, Joe, that we're seeing a lot of emphasis and books about soft skills and how the data scientist needs to fit in and their perspective. Like Jonathan Tesser did an awesome post today about your key skill to be a great data scientist is salesmanship. And he wrote it so well. And so I just love seeing people like this and my team starting to emphasize this is how we as data scientists can best serve the world. And then, but there was another theme that we saw, Joe, where people, and rightly, were complaining about how ridiculous some of the postings can get and how you can feel like, no one said it exactly this way, but we did in our blog post called Being a Data Scientist. It was like, you can feel like you're a victim of the Stanford prison guard experiment sometimes once you're inside the interview process for certain companies. And it just, we thought we needed to write this post to say, look, we understand you just, you got into this, maybe it's a bubble, I doubt it is, but you just got into this field where everyone thinks it's hot and exciting, and now you're competing with a lot of other sharp people. But we wanted to stress, and Michael Green's good about saying this in his post too, don't feel like, and Avery Smith too, don't feel like you have to get a role as a data scientist right away. This is why I love Andrew Jones' story. He started out, he wasn't even in a technical field. He started learning data science to better support the activities of his cricket club there in England. And it was just so hilarious. But what these various individuals discovered is that the principle of be, do, have. Be a data scientist and always do data science where it's needed. So you take a role so you don't starve and so you can pay rent. And so now you have a job, but look at that. Once you're fulfilling your duties in that job, take the extra time to apply data science to it and get something on your resume that says, I did some data science activities in this role where I didn't have a data science title. To me, that's super impressive that you're able to show that. And then what will you have? You will have recognition as a data scientist, regardless of your job title. So we're just trying to encourage people, please do not think your first job needs to be as a data scientist. That's just going to slow down you starting to make money and grow towards financial independence. So get busy.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's both easier and harder these days to be a data scientist, for sure. It's easier in the sense where there's a ton of materials that you and I back in the day would never have comprehended that this was available in the mass that it's available. And there's also a lot of good advice, and I echo your thoughts where there's the career advice people are giving now, stuff that you would have to spend very expensive life tuition to get these lessons. And maybe it burned a few bridges along the way too, to get there. Yeah, and nowadays it's a lot easier because there's people that are out there who are willing to like learning how to sell, right? Like that was a great post today. I think that's awesome. Needed to be said, what I do like about the community right now is there is a lot of focus not just on, okay, so you need to be awesome at like all the math stuff and every algorithm under the sun and all the other things. Like that's enough to fry your brain. But then it's also, hey, guess what? We're just kidding, because that's only like 10% of your actual job, and you need to learn how to sell and communicate and all the other stuff behind the scenes. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah. There's a story. I don't know if you've heard John Thompson share it. I love it when he shares it. It's appropriate to what you just said. He said, when we have a new data scientist on our team and they're about to give a presentation, we have them give it to us within the analytics team first. And then we listen to it and we ask them, because it's almost inevitable that this will happen, who was that presentation for? And they look at it, and if they're clued in right away, they go, oh, that was for me. And what was the purpose of that presentation? To convince them of how smart I was. Okay, now you got that out of your system. The presentation you need to give is to show them this is what you needed. This is what we're proposing. Is this something we can put in production, or do we need to go do another iteration to get it more in line with what you were thinking? That's the purpose of the meeting. And he said, but inevitably each new person, they have to help them get that out of their system. Look, everyone already thinks you're smart. They trusted our hiring capabilities. Now, get out there and show them that you've got something that can meet their needs. You don't need to show them how, just the what. And I just found that so funny. But John's really basically teaching them, look, we're very nonlinear thinkers, and we've got to connect with these brilliant linear thinkers that are running the business. So you don't need to show off, just show the solution and get feedback for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as an old boss told me once, like, when I ask for the time, don't tell me how to make a watch, just tell me the time.
Exactly.
Right? And it was a rite of passage kind of thing too, where I think almost every data person goes through this, especially early in their career. Because when you're hired, it feels like you do need to kind of go show off, right? Like, how else am I going to get credibility if I'm not showing in gory detail how I arrived at my solution? I'm not sure what your thoughts on this, but I definitely think like if you're able to summarize things very succinctly, very eloquently, that actually shows more about your domain than if you're to write like a 1,500-page thesis on the exact same thing. If you're to say it in a few paragraphs and you arrive at the same point, then I think that demonstrates smarts. So.
Yeah, I agree, but I just have this feeling that it takes a little more than just a very mature feel for your field. It also takes that very mature feel for, okay, if I weren't me, how can I make this more clear to people that haven't had my type of education in this area? That's the real hard thing. I really appreciate my brilliant marketing friends for helping me continue to try to focus better on that over the years. It wasn't easy to learn it. And I'm not saying I'm an expert at it, but I think I do pretty decent at it.
Oh yeah,
just
you do.
reducing things. Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, it just takes a lot of time to get that skill down. I think for anyone listening to this too, like especially if you're starting out, maybe the biggest skill you can learn marketing is another one I would say. Like learning how to succinctly understand. Okay, so here's how I'm talking to. Here's what they need to hear. Here's what they should hear. The should and the need are two different things too, right? And so that
Yeah,
is part of marketing. But again, it also you do need to understand what you're doing. But that again, like it's hard for people like us, I think, is we almost have a sixth sense of how things should work, and to translate that to somebody who's newer is I always find myself challenged with that. So
you know, Joe, even recently I geek spoke to death my business counterparts in my business, and one very nice leader in my business had to say, Tom, we really don't understand what you're saying. I'm paraphrasing. Can you put it in different terms? I said, I'm sorry. I geeked out on y'all. I was excited about some developments. Let me put this in a better perspective. And then, so I'm even still learning to speak to my current business better. It's a constant effort, but when you just have a nice team you're working with and they're willing to stop and give you some feedback, it's helpful. We're there
yeah,
honest with you to say, okay, we need to hear it at this level. And but it's hard when you're in a more toxic or caustic culture, which I'm not now, but it can be even more challenging to not take it personally and to go think, okay, how can I do this better? And Joe, I just think more frequent communication and learning to really care about others' needs rather than what you think you need to put forth. That's where you build those trusting relationships where they trust you to bring data to answer their needs. That's the real place to get to, regardless of how easy or difficult your current environment is.
on that note, like, what do you think makes a good team?
Now, do you mean a data science team or a broader team that has many disciplines coming together synergistically?
Let's start with the data science team. Yeah, like what would make a good data science team?
The first thing is just to remove judgment. The kind of the reaction like, you don't know how to do that yet. I'm at a point in my career where I just look at him and say, how dare you treat another individual that way? Do you know everything about this field? Well, no, Dr. Ives. And so, well, then let's just be a little more gentle with each other. This guy's smart. That's why we hired him. Now, I'm not saying that happened, but I mean, that would be the ends of that spectrum to say, let's not judge each other on what we currently know. Let's just help each other know what we need to know to do our best job as a team. That'd be the first thing. Then just a joy of, you know what? We all want to grow really good in this field. It's super cool, super exciting. We're lucky to live in this age. So let's just have a more together mentality. We can grow and improve more together than we can by, having a pecking order among one another about who's the smartest and who's the most skilled. Let's instead have a spirit of, oh, Joe knows more in this area. Let's have him help us all. And over here, so many foreign names are coming to my mind. I'll just go, Ray to Giuseppe, they're really strong over here. Let's get them to help us. Or you recognize that, oh, I know this really well. I want the rest of the team to know it well too, because we're in the midst of needing it. So I take time to bring everyone up to speed as much as possible with what I know. And so when there's that spirit, rather than trying to establish who's king of the hill, I think that makes for a better team. And then the last thing, and I'm sure there could be more, but these are the top three in my mind. Okay, we're geeks and we love being geeks, but we got to learn to speak non-geek. So how do we serve our business or our organization better with what we know? Let's get off our butts, away from our screens, and go have coffee and dinner and lunch with these people and find out where are your biggest needs? And then you look for that intersection between, okay, here's I don't know if we're on camera, Joe, but I'm showing a trajectory. Here's their current needs, and here's our data skills. And we're just finding the best intersection to create some immediate value with our data, or our ability to take the current data our organization holds and what those business counterparts need and start delivering solutions that way. And I think if a data science team could really do those three things well, they're gonna rock it.
Awesome. And then how do you keep developing talent and new skills within a team?
I think that's what we're doing with Integrated. We're just, as the illustration went with the iceberg, we found that to really help the new data scientists, we're just spending a lot of time talking about soft skills. It's not that we don't spend time on the data science too, we do, but what I'm finding is when someone from our, like we call each other family now, when someone from our family that's new to the field posts something, and it's good, and they're just trying to give to the community, they really didn't get that from us. They were just encouraged, please go master the basics. And they went off and did that and wrote this phenomenal post. But I think I might be veering from the original question. Would you remind me what it is? Sometimes I wax too much and I lose track.
No, I mean, it's just like, how do you develop?
Oh, grow as a team.
Develop skills. Yeah.
I think just reassuring one another. I know this sounds so warm and fuzzy, but I think it's true. Again, if you're not working with difficult people, it's still difficult just to advance your studies in data science. So encouraging one another with a link that helped you with that, or a paper that helped you with that, or a book that helped you with that, and sharing those things with one another. And really, I think it's so easy for geeks, and I mean that in a positive way, to get siloed and to focus on your own work for 8 hours a day. And there's certainly days where that has to happen, but there needs to be a periodic appreciation for, we should stop and check in on one another and see, is there someone struggling with the concept, and not judge one another on that. And, it's been exciting. To the same thing, I reached out to the community. I said, I have to learn transformers. Now that I realize what they can do and how they could help me serve my business better, but I'm just starting out. And in fact, I was learning reinforced learning mostly for fun, but thinking I would need it, in the not too distant future. But I thought, this is the perfect time to just put that on the shelf for a bit and go learn transformers. And I reached out to the community on LinkedIn, and they responded. And of course, I started out with some friends within our integrated community, but that led me to Marcin, and I can't say his full name, but there's not many Marcins on LinkedIn, and to Dennis Rotham, and to Robert, who's like a son to me, saying, Tom, I think we could get an early release in your hands if you'd commit to helping us find, errata in it. I said, yes, please. And so now Dennis and I are buddies, and with Marcin and our whole Transformer learning team. Well, I'm just using that as an example of any data science team needs to try to look like that. And not just be siloed to themselves, reach out to the greater community through things like meetups and LinkedIn.
That's interesting. The crowdsourced nature of your post was interesting. And I would say other posts too. It's leaning on the broader community to figure things out. Do you think that's going to become more and more of a way that we continually learn going forward? Or
what I'm trying to do in my Tuesdays and Wednesdays post with Rafe Sankari is Tuesdays are history of education in some form or another. Right now, I've been doing a series just on the library at Alexandria. He did one on the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. And then our homage posts, we're starting to do more than just say, oh, look at this great individual from the past who, without their contributions, we couldn't be where we are now. We're starting to realize, oh, wow, this shoulder standing analogy is like a chain. And then, but if you look far enough, like if you look at the major intersection that is Al-Khwarizmi, the father of manipulative algebra, he was at the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, which would have not been any country that currently exists. It was the Caliphate empire, the Arab empire, Muslims. And it was amazing, just like Alexandria was this great integration of scholars and records and scrolls. So was the House of Wisdom. And we're starting to realize the big, by the way, if it weren't for the Library of Alexandria, I'm not sure we would have had something like Euclidean geometry as soon as we did. It was amazing what Euclid came up with at that time period. It was amazing that what Al-Khwarizmi came up with, but what you see is held back in the past is different forms of scholarly oppression. And so as we see this, we're seeing evidence of it in modern times. If you look at the number of authors, for example, on technical publications, major ones even, let's do back propagation, 3 authors with Hinton, 2 others with Hinton. You look at Jan LeCun's on convolutional neural networks, him and 1 other author. You look at Sutton's original paper on reinforced learning, 2 authors. You look at attention is all you need from Google researchers, 8 authors. And you think, wait, Google, resources, big things. You look at GPT-3, Elon Musk, recently the richest man in the world, plus Microsoft, plus whoever else, putting their researchers together, forming OpenAI. What do we get from that? GPT-3 that's blowing us all away about possibilities. And I used to think, oh no, they've heard us, until I listened to Dennis a while and I realized, oh, I can get a little GPU and I can train a transformer that can outperform GPT-3 on specific tasks. This level of human ingenuity is what's driving AI forward. Not necessarily, I mean, yes, we need the advanced hardware, and GPT-3 absolutely needed all that energy spent and all that cost on the huge data farm, forgive my poor use of terms in the data engineering world, and all those, the 10,000 GPUs it used. But then you realize, oh, I can transfer learn GPT-3 once they will let me have it to do other additional things better. This level of human ingenuity is coming about because of the massive integration of brilliance. It's not just onesie twosies or threesies working in isolation, reading a lot of technical publications. It's these massive teams working together. I would bet that there were far more people behind making GPT-3 a success than 8 or 9 people that were listed on the paper. But it just shows you that even when they write a groundbreaking paper now, it's no more just 2 or 3 authors. And I think that's hybrid thinking right there. That's synergistic thinking. That's symbiosis there. I can't say enough good about it. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words at that point.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, on that note, what do you think the future of collaboration within the data science community is going over the next, say, 5-10 years?
Well, I literally think that what we've been talking about, what does a data science team, a good data science team look like? Incorporating those things that we've just been discussing will be the difference between teams that make a big difference and those that don't. I would love to be able to be a fly on the wall with no fly swatters in the room, of course, and have been listening in on that Google research team as they developed GPT-3 in the OpenAI group. That would have been really, actually, I'm sorry. I think that Attention is All You Need paper came out, and then soon after that, I think OpenAI formed. And then they, of course, came out with GPT-2, which scared people even then. But yeah, GPT-3 is pretty amazing. It's definitely not sentient. We're not anywhere near general AI, but man, what a big jump.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what kind of jumps will be happening, over the next 10, 20 years. I mean, I grew up reading a book by Ray Kurzweil, like the futurist, and so it was always this. What else was I reading as a kid? I was actually an ME student for a bit back in the day. I was reading Eric Drexler, the old nanotechnology kind of proselytizer. So, and growing up in that sort of fiction, it was, I wouldn't say fiction, but just predictions, kind of where the world is going and exponential rates of growth of technology and soon to be artificial intelligence. I mean, it's, if you're to believe Kurzweil, I guess by at the end of this decade, we'll have machines that are, smarter than humans, but we'll see where it all goes, I guess. So,
you and I as former MEs, well, I never consider myself a former ME. I'm just an ME mechanical engineer doing data science, or a multi-physics modeling expert doing data science also. But it's fun to think. So I'm old enough to remember original releases of the first Star Trek series.
Oh.
And a lot of things that we have now are more advanced than what were proposed there in the series. And of course, we don't have the holodeck and we don't have warp engines, but who knows? And but their communicators look outdated. They're flip cell phones when you get down to it. And now it's more, it's funny to watch Star Trek advance with each new series. But I digress. It's the point I was driving to, though, is this. Joe, it's humbling. 10, 20 years from now, we'll watch a group of undergrad kids saying Transformers. That was so 2020. And they're going to be playing with something far more advanced that can, I don't know when we'll see general AI. I'm not sure we ever will, because that means there's a level of sentience where the machine says, who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? I don't know about that. And even gorillas that learn sign language are super smart, but it's interesting. They never pose questions back to us about their existentialism. And but I do think the Turing test is maybe already achieved. That you'd have to be pretty sharp philosophically, probably. I'd say at least 10 years from now, maybe sooner. You can converse with a machine, and if you didn't know how to test it for whether it's sentient or not, you wouldn't know it wasn't human. And so I think we're not far from that, but hopefully humans will arm themselves with a higher level intelligence. The nice thing, the other thing I want to say is, as mechanical engineers, you think about it, we've been designing systems for decades as humans that do things we can't do. I mean, computers can calculate faster, but we have to tell them how to do it. Airplanes can fly and we can't, but we can get in them, and we made them, And so to me, I wish the public would see AI the same way. Oh, you're worried about artificial intelligence taking over the world? Well, don't code it that way. Don't code it in a way that would allow it to do that. I think Hollywood still drives public opinion too much. And even my son, he's not a geek, but we're really close. And he's an outstanding young man, but he walked up and saw when I got my reinforced learning agent work. He said, Dad, haven't you learned from all these movies we watched that you shouldn't program? He was teasing me, but he was half serious too. Like, that's not going to turn out well for us. And I'm like, son, it's God. I think you need to worry about whether AI gets in the hands of evil people. And that's my bigger concern.
Yeah. I think it also speaks to the, I often think about this with my kids, and and their friends. But the skills I try and emphasize with them are definitely a lot of soft skills. This is coming from somebody who's very kind of left brain centric skill set. But I think a lot of that, if you want to talk about automation of jobs or whatever, I think that the a lot of things that I would say are more analytically based. I mean, that has a potential to be automated. The ability to communicate,
Yeah.
empathize. I mean, that's going to be hard to replicate. Of course, there's I could see substitutions maybe. Maybe like robot spouses or something. But at the end of the day, it's like if you look at like a lot of the highest paid people in the world, right? Elon Musk notwithstanding, or Bill Gates or whoever, but like, I mean, it's a lot of these people get to where they are because of, I think, really good salesmanship, um, being able to lead, being
Yeah.
able to build companies and inspire people, and that's it's a much different skill set than maybe the data science skill sets that we have, and so.
I agree with you there. I really don't know much, for example, about, let's just pick one of them, Elon. I don't know much about him. There's many things I admire about him, but at the end of the day, Joe, all this technology, I really do care more about the level of benevolence that these major technological leaders have. Because I've seen over and over in my short life, that personality trickles down to the people doing the creation. That, for the most part, the culture you're in does have an effect on you, and that concerns me. I would feel much more at ease for the future of humanity if these amazing technological leaders and if those leading the advancements like Elon showed that they really did care about humanity. I saw something very condemning about one of these huge tech leaders today in a post, and it made me think, I hate following current events. I just get burned out by them because I think the news is so slanted. But it made me wonder, wow, there was evidence that Elon didn't even care that he had crossed the barrier as the richest man in the world. He was just like, well, okay, back to work. And I like that spirit. And there's definitely evidence that he cares about his company, Tesla, and his other companies and his employees. So I love that. And he does seem to care about the future of the planet, but it's amazing. There's really seemingly very few checks on who leads us both technologically and politically anymore. And just at a personal level, that does scare me. I hope I didn't go too far off topic here.
Nah, pretty open in here. Yeah, and I would say, advancements in other countries, China being one of them. It's interesting just seeing where, sort of the divergence of artificial intelligence there too, where, you may, whereas in the Western world, you have, maybe business leaders are the ones seemingly driving things. I mean, obviously they have people actually doing the work, but,
Yeah.
it seems definitely in China, things are a bit different over there. It's if you're not doing it with the state, then I guess you're not doing it at all. So that's how that goes. So, but that said, there's some amazing advancements. That, there's almost a parallel universe. China's doing some amazing things with AI as well, and who knows if we'll cross paths or not going forward. So
I have a question for you.
mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm really enjoying this show and the line of questions. I wanted to tell you that. But
Yeah.
In my LinkedIn presence, I'm really trying to be well diversified with who I'm connected to across the world. By the way, I'm looking up at the world map that's above my desk. I love to look at it. And, a unknown thing about me, my second most skilled language, well, I'm an American. I really only truly speak one language. But if you were to throw me in China, I think I could survive because I know enough Mandarin. But even with that, I feel like there's this barrier to making more connections with people in the farther east, like China, not India, not Australia, and definitely have many connections in Indonesia. But I just feel very bankrupt with good connections in China and other Asian countries like that. I don't know if you feel the same, even Russia too.
Mm-hmm. I think to some extent, and part of it is probably just the social networks. I mean, if we were on Twitter, might be a different story, or other social networks, really. Like my dad lives in Southeast Asia right now. He's American, and it's interesting over there because I think it's just there's sort of a provincialism with applications. So like we're all on LinkedIn, for example. That's how we know each other, and a lot of our connections are there too. And we have some contacts. Singapore I think is pretty well represented. In the LinkedIn community. I don't see as much from places like Bangkok, Malaysia, even Japan for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and China. I'm not even talking about China just because I know it is sort of a increasingly it is just sort of this parallel universe where China is doing its own thing and the rest of the world's doing their own thing. And so, I do have definitely Chinese connections on LinkedIn, but I would say it's a very small number compared to other places. So yeah,
and I sometimes I wonder, is it just the difference in writing system? That actually could be all it is, but I get the sense that it goes a little deeper. And by the way, I even have a Chinese daughter. She's 16 now, and a Mongolian son from Inner Mongolia inside China, and he's 17 now. And so I mean, I'm very heart centric toward that part of the world, but I do have some. I mean, the few connections I have with some South Koreans and some Chinese, they feel strong, but they're just so few. Anyway, I deeply regret that. That's all I'm saying.
Same. I before COVID, I mean, I found myself visiting China on and off, I'd say fairly regularly, and I do like the place a lot. I think it's it's interesting seeing what's happening now with relationships between all the countries, and kind of makes me sad, but it is what it is. And but yeah, I noticed in Thailand, for example, one place I'd go to quite a bit, like they use Line over there a lot. That's an app for their social network, and Line is popular, I think, in Japan, Taiwan, I think, Thailand, and maybe a couple other countries, and that's how you communicate there. And so that's the social network, and that's predominantly how. And so I think maybe part of it's that it's just like, where are people's eyeballs all day, right? And like, how are they looking for work? And maybe it's also LinkedIn here it's a professional network, but in the grand scheme of social network sizes, it's actually pretty small, right? I mean, compared to WhatsApp, Facebook, and whatever other localized social networks there are in these other countries. It's hard to say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a mystery, but there's some clues, in other words, and I share that with you.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of represented too in the startup ecosystems in a lot of these areas too. What I find interesting is, like Singapore seems to have a very interesting startup ecosystem, and there's a lot of professionals there, but there's a lot of professional expatriates there anyway. Whereas you get to a city like Bangkok, I mean, it's still a lot of expats, but I'm not sure like if it's the same LinkedIn crowd that we have here or in Singapore. So that's a good question.
Recently, I felt like I became much more understanding of Singapore from the excellent documentary called Crazy Rich Asians. And I'm joking, of course, but it really did. And then I love to watch Sailing Couple channels, and it helped me appreciate, of course, Singapore's right there at that narrow shipping channel. And, boy, did they scream when someone suggested possibly putting a canal, from the Gulf of Thailand to the Okay, Adam
Andaman.
and C. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Adam and C. And they're like, no way. You'll and it, you look at it and you go, oh, no wonder they're so rich and so business centric. But they have all those resources flowing right around their cape there. But
Hmm.
yeah, and of course you and I are both friends with Ku, and I love that. But yeah, just it's funny now that become more world centric because of COVID. I'm always thinking, oh, how do I balance my connections out? And I'm really enjoying making more connections with South America.
Hmm.
And then I've learned a lot from that from a Peruvian friend that's very dear to me, but still so much to learn about the whole world. And then, but the hardest thing, Joe, to learn is just the needs. And I'm getting back to data science here, really trying to connect with and do everything our team can do to help places in Central Africa. But in
Right.
some cases, the needs are so huge that there's like literally nothing we can do yet. I'm going to keep saying yet and hope that it's soon, but it's sad.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And what I find fascinating is, the data science perspective that we probably have on a day-to-day basis is very US centric because we happen to live in the US, right? Um, what I find interesting, and I always tell people this, is like, they ask, well, where in the world would you go if you weren't in the US? And I'd be like, well, it depends. But if I was interested in doing startups in a dynamic area, I would probably choose Southeast Asia. Just um, given the population of people that are becoming middle class, for example, given the amount of data that, I mean, the way people use mobile phones in Southeast Asia blows me away. I mean, it makes the US look downright primitive
Would
by
you
comparison.
would you say you're talking about, for example, Indonesia right now and Malaysia?
Uh, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, I can throw Singapore into that mix too. Yeah, the whole area, Philippines probably somewhat by
Yeah.
extension, but yeah.
Joe, I got to echo what you're saying with a strong piece of evidence. So I count young Lewis Owen, who's Indonesian, as a dear friend. We even try to write together as often as we can. Super smart young man, and so many of my friends in other countries, they do want to come here or to Canada. And I remember asking Lewis this. He said no. He was happy to be in it, and I was like, that is so awesome. And
Hmm.
frankly, because of just the sheer volume of friends I have online now, if I don't move to India, I'll at least have to visit there frequently because we
Yeah.
have so many amazing, brilliant friends there, and that I would love to interact with more. But I hear you, and it's interesting. Even um, oh shoot, I'm forgetting her first name. Pearson Evelyn, is that right? Um, anyway, just she lives in a small island off the coast of Thailand, I think.
Oh, it's cool.
Yeah, do you is it Evelyn Pearson?
The name rings a bell. Yeah,
Anyway, yeah,
but
she's a data expert that is active with our community a little bit. I was, but
yeah, but the cool thing is that the world's getting a lot smaller. Like I think when you and I were in school, you were in school earlier than I was, but um, it's still a very fixed thing, right? Like you're gonna work with people in the US. You're going to have your career here, and probably the only people you're ever gonna interact with professionally are people in the US because that's kind of how it was for a long time.
yeah,
Nowadays, I would say disproportionately, I'm not talking to that many. I mean, I talk to a lot of people in the US, obviously, I'm sure you do too, but like well over half are not from here at all. And I think that's
absolutely.
awesome. That's cool.
I had this very wonderful talk, and they have different terminology, but basically a lawyer in India who wanted to specialize in laws around AI, but her thinking was so progressive. She wanted to uh, proactively help new companies enter that space in a way that they could do so safely and avoid the threats that could be incurred by a new startup using AI. And so she just really wanted to be an expert in that space to the extent that she wanted to dive into some data science too. And but it I realized, oh, her and I will probably end up doing expert witnessing and or expert consultations together in the near future. And I was like blown away. That wasn't what I expected on the call, but as we got to know each other and arrived at that, and like Rafe Sankari, he's Syrian born, he works in UAE. We're already looking at being co-authors. We've never seen each other literally face to face, just over video calls, but we're like brothers. And I totally echo what you're saying.
That's awesome. Well, cool. I think we're coming up on the hour. This might be a good place to cut out for now, but enjoyed talking with you. And I think this would be the first of probably many chats. So how would people get a hold of you? Yeah, same here. How would people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you?
I don't mean this rudely. I hate Facebook. I just don't even like it. I get on there as little as possible. But people send me friend requests, but definitely LinkedIn. Just really right now. And we are working on a better landing page for integrated. I do have a GitHub repo. We have the integrated machine learning and AI blog, but really if you connect with me on LinkedIn, then we can add you to our integrated family where we do the integrated mentoring, and we have our Saturday meetups to help one another, where we're also just supporting each other's posts on LinkedIn and helping each other know how to write better posts to help the community, things like that. So I'm sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying LinkedIn. Send me, follow me and I'll follow you back. I try to follow everyone back that follows me, but also I'm not at the connection request limit yet, but it is appearing to accelerate rapidly lately.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, cool. Well, it's good talking with you, and we'll see you next time. So thanks, Tom.
You too, Joe. It's an honor to be on your show. I really enjoyed our talk. Thank you.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you.